Hello and welcome back to the Ash and Stone channel. My name is Chris, and today we'll be having a look at the new Oathmark Human Heavy Infantry. Big thanks to Northstar for sending the figures out early. Let's start with a look at the frame, and then I'll show you how I'm painting them. As is usual with the Oathmark kits, you get 6 of these frames, each of which will allow you to assemble 5 infantry models. In the case of the heavy infantry, these are armed with a one-handed weapon and shield, or a two-handed weapon. The torsos are armoured in a mail hauberk, over which they wear a coat of plates and a mail collar. Their mailed arms have strapped-on vambraces, no gloves or gauntlets, though those will be easily converted from the elf infantry kit if I so desire, and a good mix of axes, swords and maces. It also has your standard officer and standard bearer parts, with a heroically posed sword arm, banner pole, and an offhand axe. The frame comes with 10 heads, 5 with face plates, 5 without, and they are mostly new sculpts, which is always preferred, as it adds more variety when mixed with the previous kits. These shields are beefed up versions of the regular infantry ones, rectangular, with a reinforcing cross and plenty of battle damage. The frame itself is a little smaller than the elf heavy frame, lacking the additional accessories such as sheathed daggers, swords and feathers. So let's get to painting. I start with a sprayed on black undercoat and Vallejo basic skin tone. This is applied to all of the areas of skin on the model. I like to start painting from the deepest area of the model and then work outwards where possible, as that way you don't have to paint past something you've already done. So skin is always a good place to start. Most models don't go deeper than that. 2 coats are required for good coverage over the black base. To give us our shading, Army Painter Flesh Wash is applied fairly liberally over the skin. This of course flows into the recesses, making the details pop. Now is a good time to do the eyes, so a little black is used to pick them out with a horizontal line, followed by a couple of vertical slashes of white to pick out the whites. Doing the eyes after the wash, but before doing any highlights, means that if I've made any mistakes, they can be cleaned up as part of the process, rather than requiring me to go back to an earlier step. With the eyes done, I use basic skin tone once more to highlight the skin. So I hit areas like the brow, nose, cheeks and jaw, pick out the details of the hands like the fingers, and bring up any large flat areas that are left a little dark by the wash, like the back of the head or the back of the hands. To add a little extra colour to the figure's faces, I slap a little Vallejo brown rose on the figure's bottom lip. In this case on a different figure, because the other's lip is largely hidden within his glorious moustache. With the skin done, Vallejo US Grey is used to paint the trousers. I like to keep the trousers dark and nondescript. That way they sort of fade into the background a bit, and the brighter, more interesting parts of the model come to the fore. Trousers based, it's on to the armour, and Vallejo steel is used to base the mail, vambraces, helmet if the figure's got one, and weapons. This will give us a nice bright base to our steel, which is a nice change for me after all of the dark orc and goblin stuff I've been doing lately. When that's dry, the trousers and steel can be given a fairly generous wash of Army Painter Dark Tone. This will shade the recesses, give us some texture on the steel, and once again make those details pop. That takes a little while to dry, but when it has, I move on to the coat of plates. This guy will be done with a red and blue coat, while others will be done with black and brown. Vallejo Prussian blue goes down first and is painted on the right side of the figure as you're looking at it. I'm using 3 or 4 different colours here to add variety to the unit, and also to tie them in with the human infantry I've painted in the past. Vallejo Burnt Cadmium Red is applied to the left side of the coat as you look at it, and I try to make a neat line down the edge where the red and blue meet. My regular infantry wear black and brown armour over or under a red and blue surcoat, so I continue that theme. A coat of plates is made of overlapping steel plates riveted to the inside of a textile backing, and as such it can be dyed in pretty much any colour, pattern or design you want. With the base colours down, it's wash time, and the blue side gets washed with Army Painter Blue Tone. I go through and finish one side at a time before switching to the next colour. So when the blue tone is dried, it's back in with the Prussian blue to reapply that base colour, leaving the wash down in the recesses. A little Vallejo Iraqi sand is mixed into the blue to create a faded highlight, which is used to pick out the edges of the plates and the edges of the coat itself. I prefer the look of the plates being sewn into the coat rather than being stuck on the outside, and so I'm painting them all with a cloth covering. Blue done, it's on to the red, and the same steps are followed. Wash with Army Painter Red Tone, reapply the burnt cadmium red base, and highlight with a little Iraqi sand mixed in. The black armour is given a base of black, funnily enough, to make sure it's nice and even and tidy up any areas I've painted over the lines. Instead of washing, I go straight to a mid-tone step with Vallejo Black Grey. This gets applied like the red and blue after the wash, leaving the black down in the recesses. Finally, a highlight is applied by mixing in a little Iraqi sand. Brown armour is done in much the same way. I'm sure you've got the process now. Vallejo Beige Brown base, wash of Army Painter Strong Tone, reapply Beige Brown, and you'll never guess it, but a highlight with a little Iraqi sand mixed in. While we've got the black and brown out, we'll do some details on the first guy. Black is used to paint the grip of the sword, and that's highlighted with black grey. And then the hair is given a base of beige brown. Models that have axes or maces have their weapon hafts painted with 2 coats of Iraqi sand, and a little Army Painter light tone is applied where that butts up against other colours, to define the edges, shade them, and add a little transition between colours. We're on the home stretch now, and it's time to do the leather. If you've been here before, you'll be quite familiar with this process. Vallejo Chocolate Brown is used as a base. Over the black undercoat, it need not be an even colour. A little mottling will just add to the final effect, though in saying that you don't want any areas of stark black. So it's used to paint the boots, pouch, belt, and vambrace straps. Vallejo Flat Earth is next, and it's applied in a haphazard fashion to areas that would see wear in use. Primarily edges and high areas that would rub against other equipment or the environment. So it's not a highlight in the traditional sense, and it does not need to be tidy. Additional wear is added with a small amount of Vallejo Dark Sand. This is applied more sparingly on the areas of most wear, the outermost points such as the toes of the boots and the bottom and edges of the pouch flap. This gives us areas of leather that have been worn right through the outer dyed layer to the raw leather beneath. The more you add, the more scratched and worn the leather will end up looking. The colours are quite starkly different and don't necessarily go together very well, so to unify them and add some shading, we give all of the areas of leather a wash of Army Painter Strong Tone. While I've got it out, I also give the hair a wash to darken it down and add some shading to the details. When that's dry, a quick highlight on the hair using beige brown will pull the details out of the shade a little more, and we're ready for a spray of Tamiya Flat Clear. This will reduce any unwanted shine, add a protective layer to a current paint job, and I always find that it makes the colours pop. When that's been given time to dry, we can grab a little more Vallejo steel and bring back some of the shine to the areas of metal. I start with a dry brush over the mail and any of the plates. This makes the details on the mail stick out and adds a nice uneven and scratchy surface to the areas of plate. Rather than being uniformly shiny, these smooth surfaces will show a mix of flat and shiny areas, giving the illusion of scratches and dings on the surface. A more deliberate application of steel is added to the weapons, belt buckle, and edges of the steel plates. Then it's time for basing. I glue grout to the top of the base, paint the rim black, and add static grass, tufts, and a little fine turf to create a lush, if slightly dry base. As a final bit of detailing, I decide the officer is lacking a little something, and so I use Army Painter Warped Yellow to paint a line of trim along the edges of his coat of plates. For line breakers, they're done, but warriors will require a little more work. I've primed the shields brown while they're still on the frame. Leaving them on the frame makes them easier to handle, and the nice square sides of the shields makes cleanup really easy once the painting's done and they've been clipped out. Priming the shields brown means that the backs can be finished off with a wash of strong tone, no need for a base colour. The fronts are painted in a red and blue scheme, using the same process as the coat of plates. Base, wash, reapply base, and highlight. The boss and reinforcing strips are given a coat of black as a base for the steel to follow. Black always gives the best base for silver metallics, so it's worth taking the time for that extra step. The rim of the shield is given a coat of Vallejo German Camouflage Beige World War II to give us a rawhide wrapped rim. The steel and the rivets in the rawhide are given a wash of dark tone to shade them, and then the shields can be given a blast of Tamiya Flat Clear to lock everything in. When that dries, I clip the shields from the frame, tidy up the edges with a knife, and glue them to the models with a spot of superglue. Now that they are locked in place, I can paint the outside edges with camouflage beige to continue the rawhide wrap, and the steel can be highlighted with a careful dry brush, and then by picking the details out. That's the models done. They are so easy to paint, and they are such unique and good looking miniatures. I really like them. If I had to criticise, they are big, 29mm to the eye as opposed to the 27 to 28 of the previous human models. Though being line breakers and warriors, you would expect them to be bigger men. And like the Orc Heavies, these shoulder sockets, we'll call them, are not parallel, instead tapering closer towards the top. This means that the two-handed poses really only work in one orientation, as when you rotate the arm in the socket, it changes the distance between the wrist where they join. It just makes extra work to vary the poses. Much more filing or filling is required to adjust things than with the Revenant or Elf heavy kits, for example. But those are pretty minor gribbles overall. As I said, I really like the look of them, and they are ridiculously easy to paint. It takes no time at all to knock them up. But I hope you've enjoyed this look at the models. Let me know what you think of them, and we'll see you next time. Cheers!